So I think I'm gonna get back into Yu-Gi-Oh! Last Saturday, I entered into my first Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament in a little over a decade, and I have to say, it was honestly such a good experience. I piloted Omni Heroes, saw some old friends, made some new ones, and with the help of my opponents, actually learned the rules. In the end, astonishingly, I found myself in second place, and it really reminded me why I loved this game. I do love that competition, and the goal, it remains. We are going to top a regionals, we are going to top a YCS, we are going to do so primarily by buying singles, and this is episode 2 of getting back into Yu-Gi-Oh! So, it is now Tuesday, and if you watched last week's episode, you're aware that we are waiting on an Evil Hero Malicious Bane. However, last weekend, we competed in our first 2 tournaments back in over a decade, and in both of which, with regular Omni Heroes, we got second place. I was wildly surprised, I had such a good time, and with that said, I'm actually quite happy with the deck even without the Bane, but I do want to make one change, one pivotal card that I think will really help us extend our combos without having to run through a lot of hoops like I did last weekend. I'm switching out my second Solid Soldier for a Monster Reborn in an attempt to just kind of make comboing easier. Last week, I frequently found myself attempting to do some very different card gymnastics to attempt to bring Shadow Mist back to search a mask change, and it was just more difficult than it needed to be, and I think Monster Reborn will solve that just very simply. Monster Reborn just does it without the hassle. The only downside is that I can't pitch it with Ferris or use it in hand for regular poly. I think that's a fair trade. I'll also be swapping out a Solomon Great Chimera for a second Starving Venom Dragon. I did end up picking a second one up, and now let's talk about the side deck. Admittedly, last weekend, my side deck, it was a bit of a mess. I really wasn't sure going into it what people were going to be playing, and really what cards in general were utilized the most. However, I did watch a couple of YouTube videos, and I did learn a couple of things. So, here we have the current side deck. At our current point, I know that I want to try DD Crows and Lancia for just general siding, and I'd also really like to side evenly matched, just in case I end up playing Altergeist again or anything that's very control-oriented. Now that is certainly an improvement. I'd also like to note that I am aware that Twin Twister is a card. I actually ordered some last week, they haven't come in yet, but when we get them, we will throw those into the side. And on the note of the side deck, still not sure what I want to do to deal with Cyber Dragon, so I think we'll head online, order some options, and then, you know, in 2 to 3 weeks, we can actually maybe deal with the deck. So, I have some exciting news. Today, we have a new package to open. So, I decided to order Pendulums because they, like Heroes, seemed like they struck a really good balance between swarming the board and creating a lot of control. They're also a really affordable deck, so great for beginners just trying to get into the game. Now, as you can see, I ordered the main deck. However, I don't have a generic extra deck yet, so that's not something we'll be playing in the next week or two. It'll be kind of an option for down the road and just a little bit of variance. With that said, I'm still fairly unaware of how pendulum summoning and all of that works in general, so we're going to hop onto YouTube and just try to pick up a thing or two.
Cimoooo! Main deck and boast a variety form or another. Just be sure to read the card text.
So, it is now Saturday, it is now tournament day, and you guessed it, Bane is still yet to arrive. So at this point, I've almost accepted that it's lost in the mail, that it's not going to come, and if it doesn't come by next Friday, I'll probably order another one, and should that first one ever come in, then I'll try to trade or sell it. But I'm honestly okay with that. I really like our current build, and I feel like this week we're actually going into it with a real side deck, so that's definitely a bonus. On that note though, it is just a couple of hours before the tournament. I'm going to make one change to the side deck, and that is the addition of one more heavy Storm Duster in place of a super Polymerization. And I know it seems like a really strange choice, but listen to me here. Whenever I'm playing, I feel like I always need more back row destruction. What I don't feel like I need is another Polymerization, because I'm always searching these things off of Vion and it just doesn't seem necessary. But I have to say, I'm still really excited. I felt like last week there was so much excitement because it was the first tournament in 10 years and it was, you know, it was this build up, he was trying all these different decks, but somehow I feel like that excitement's still there. I feel like it wasn't a one-time thing, and I love that. I feel like there was such a good atmosphere, so pumped to get back to it, ready, excited, and I'll see you there soon. Match 1 of the tournament was against Burning Abyss, and it was piloted by a player named Ganon. This is Ganon, you'll see him a lot. Ganon and I, we actually met the previous week, and I just barely won against his Fire King deck, and I knew after that match that he was one of those players that I would never have an easy match against him. He really knew his stuff. Now, it's worth noting that I opened incredibly broken, and with the help of Trinity and Piercing, I was able to take Game 1. Game 2, it was a different story. I sided some crows and had an alright hand, but we went back and forth for a while, and when it counted, Ganon, he really went off.
Stand by main, I'm killing you.
Okay.
I'm just gonna make Yazi.
Game 3 was, well, modern Yu-Gi-Oh! He made a board of Vanity's Fiend and Fiendish Rhino, which I simply couldn't break, and that was the end of it.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. So, while I didn't win my first match, I think we had some great games, and I was definitely making significantly less misplays than I was in the initial week. I'd also like to note that last week, I mentioned a player who really helped me, really walked me through my deck, and, you know, helped me with those combos in-game. That player, specifically, was Ganon. Super nice guy.
The game mechanic dictates that effect is still on board before your tribute summon succeeds.
My second match was against Blue Eyes, and I have to say, this was incredibly nostalgic. The first deck I ever got was back in 2002. It was the original Kaiba deck, and I still remember going to the store, picking that up, coming back home, running over to my neighbors and being like, we have to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. So, to articulate this match simply, the first game, it was an incredibly hard one. I realized that I actually didn't have many answers to his numerous 3,000 light beaters, because I couldn't use Super Polymerization, and there are only so many fusions that can really run over those cards. So he did eventually end up taking game 1 with the drop of an Honest, which was just out of nowhere. Now, to be honest, I really wasn't sure how this match would go. Luckily, I did take game 2 with a true hero classic of Honest Neos and Trinity. Thank goodness. So, things were looking up until we drew our opening hand, which happened to be the greatest brick of all time. I actually hadn't seen a hand this bad since I've been back playing, and I actually considered just picking it up and scooping right there. But I didn't. I set 2 cards with the hope that maybe, just maybe, next turn I would draw Ferris. As a miraculous update, I actually did end up drawing the Ferris, which allowed me to go off and end the game with yet another Trinity. It was both incredibly unlucky and wildly lucky all at the same time. If anything, this was just a reminder that you have to believe in the heart of the cards. You've got to do it. You've got to do it.
Yeah, I have the promo stuff.
No word of a lie.
So, our third match, it's up against Pendulums, and I get really lucky with my first turn. I'm able to make Plasma, and he essentially just isn't able to work himself around that. With that said, our second game was significantly more close, significantly more grindy. We were top decking, we were going back and forth, and this was a great game because Carter was also just learning the deck, so it really felt like two friends sitting down, having a good time, and in the end, I did take the match. I did get a little bit more lucky, but honestly, I think I only did so because before our match, he sat me down and he taught me the mechanics of pendulums. Again, I looked it up earlier in the week, but I was still a little fuzzy on it, and I would not have done as well as I did had he not taken that time, and I really appreciate that. Now, we need to pause. This guy right here, that's Mario, and he runs this shop. Mario and I, we go way back. So before I quit Yu-Gi-Oh! About 10 years ago, Mario and I, we would actually go to the same shop. And this was a really big locals. We had between 20 and 30 players each week. And at that time, I was in high school. I didn't really have a lot to worry about, so I spent a lot of time on Yu-Gi-Oh! I actually won most of the tournaments there. However, I always knew that if I got paired up against Mario, it could go either way. He was always a very pragmatic player. He was always a very good player. And I mention this now because back then, he had the idea of starting his own shop, which, as you can tell, we are now playing in. He had this idea, he brought it to fruition, and I just think that is wildly, wildly cool. He opened this place a month ago. It's just getting bigger and bigger. His events are getting better and better. The shop looks better and better. And I have to say, I am just so proud of this guy, and I mention all of this because while this channel is focused on me getting back into Yu-Gi-Oh!, learning the rules, learning the mechanics, and eventually topping a big tournament, on the side here, we're going to be documenting Mario as he builds this shop, and I think that's so cool. I think so many people have this dream of building their own card shop, and he's doing it. So hopefully you enjoy the series, hopefully his story, what he's doing, it really inspires you, and hopefully you also learn a couple things along the way. With that said, let's get back into the matches. The next match was against True Draco, and I have to say, I played against this deck and this player last week. I knew that they were quite good with it. However, I came prepared. I had a lot of back row removal in my side deck. I was using Stratos so much to just pop those back row, and in the end, I was also able to take this match as well. So that was actually our last match of the day. We didn't end up doing a top 4 because a lot of people had to go. However, in the end, I did get third place because of back points, but I only lost one match and I lost it 2-1, so I think that's pretty cool. So I'm really, really happy with how we're doing after a 10-year hiatus, and on top of that, I feel like the deck just gets better and better. Actually, on that note, I did do some trading, and I also ordered some new cards, so next week, we are making some big upgrades to the deck. Honestly, I really hope you guys enjoyed the new episode, and again, I am so pleased, I am so honored by all of the positive comments in the first episode. I didn't expect it to blow up the way it did, and that's because of you, so really, really thank you. I have to say, I already love you guys. I love what we're doing here, I love what we're making, and I love the support you guys are giving, so thank you for those comments. So, as I noted in the first episode, I am putting a massive amount of time into the production of these videos in an attempt to really bring you guys the best possible content that I can. And if you're really enjoying this series, consider liking the videos, consider subscribing for the next episode, and really above all, consider sharing this with a friend who also really enjoys Yu-Gi-Oh! Or on a Yu-Gi-Oh! Group. I know a lot of you did that last week, and it made a monumental impact. With that said, let's build something special together, and I will see you next week with a new episode of Getting Back into Yu-Gi-Oh!